is that when these schools of ed, these self-styled scholars who really don't appear to be able to do any kind of analysis that's worth the word analysis, moved in and started training the generation's teachers. What they in part did with this embrace of postmodernist and even pseudo-postmodernist thought was elevate the idea of white-collar work, much of which is meaningless and pointless and doesn't need to be done, and threw out the value of and the idea that there was virtue and honor in blue-collar work. And in so doing, they guaranteed that there are a lot of people who had been voting Democratic were not going to anymore if people working the trades are no longer valued because this postmodernist garbage coming out of schools of ed is now in the Democratic Party as well, which it clearly is. Some number of people are going to say, well, screw that, I'm going to the other party. But it also reminds us once again of something that I and we have been saying for a long time, which is that for people who literally do not do anything that is physical in the world, and therefore have no thing that they do from which they can get feedback, which cannot be gamed, those people have an easier time fooling themselves and the rest of the world about what their true intentions are and whether or not their supposed solutions will work. I actually don't really want to hear from someone who's got proposed solutions if they can't demonstrate to me that they can do something in the physical world successfully. And I was actually, I was walking around Oregon City a week ago or so, waiting while our younger son was having an orthodontist appointment. And I passed by a statue outside the local courthouse. I've forgotten the guy's name. But he was some important figure in Oregon City, maybe one of the first judges, an important lawyer, and the bust of him had all of those things. But the very first thing that it had on the statue in terms of what he did was welder. And I hope I have this right. I hope I have which trade it was, which all these other things were. But I commented to Toby, our son, whose appointment I was waiting on, after I said, isn't that amazing and wonderful that they chose to point out first, and maybe it was blacksmith, I can't remember, that they chose first and foremost to identify the trade that he was skilled in before pointing out the things that he did that are why his bust is here. If he had just been a blacksmith or a welder, whatever it was that he was doing, he wouldn't have a statue in front of the courthouse, right?
Yeah.
But I would argue that had he not had that background in the trade that he did, he also wouldn't have his bust in front of that courthouse because he wouldn't have the sense and the wisdom that those skills gave him in order to do good in the world later.
Yeah, an incredible amount of what's true is also counterintuitive to one level or another. And the way you discover that is through some system in which what is counterintuitive, you are forced to it by the fact that the system isn't listening to clever arguments. It just works or it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, you and I both have this sense that it is fundamentally important before you start deciding what should happen that you have experience with some system that is completely impervious to your cleverness of speech and only responds to your depth of insight.